the muscle car. You either love it or you hate it, there's no in between. But whether you're one of those old heads that believe these big V8s could quote-unquote hop a Coke can, they couldn't. Or one of those youngins who always compare them to faster modern cars, they're almost 60 years old. There's no denying that these cars were an icon of American culture that showed that we were no slouch when it came to racing. But where in its history were they at their peak? What year did muscle madness come to full fruition? Well, that's a pretty loaded question relating to performance, numbers, horsepower, body style.
It's 1970.
Here's why I'm right and anybody who disagrees is wrong. Muscle cars, known as supercars when they came out, really kicked off in the early to mid 60s. They weren't in their full form just yet, but companies were realizing that, shoving a full-size engine into a mid-sized car was pretty fun. I really can't blame them for wanting to do it, since all the moonshiners had grown up and gotten big boy jobs. But old habits die hard, and in '64 we welcomed cars like the GTO, the Buick Grand Sport, the Chevelle SS, and more. Can you tell I'm a dirty GM fanboy? Now, the power wasn't great, with most of these cars being anywhere between the 250 and 325 power mark. Not slow by any means, but not blistering fast, especially with those 2-speed transmissions. But what can you expect from the first gens? Nobody gets it perfect the first try, but this was a solid step in the right direction. Sales weren't amazing, as they were a bit more expensive, but they really weren't meant to sell hundreds of thousands of models. They were the cars you see on a pedestal to reel you in so you could buy a wagon or something. In the mid to late 60s, all of a sudden the Mopar groups decided to roll out some quote-unquote budget muscle cars like the Plymouth Roadrunner, the Dodge Super Bee, and this niche car called the Charger, I guess? I don't know, I'm guessing it's probably one of those models lost to history. These cars were in the sub-15s of the quarter mile, which was fast for the time, and boy, it was on! Arguably, Ford and Mercury were having some of the best Mustangs and Cougars coming out around this time, with the Mach 1 showing up all over films from the era. In fact, a '68 Mustang faced off with a '68 Charger in the movie Bullet, which has arguably one of the best chase scenes of all time, argue with a wall. It's here on YouTube, highly recommend checking it out. It holds up even today, so long as you're not counting hubcaps. Now, in all this, you're probably wondering what GM was doing all this time. They weren't exactly twiddling their thumbs, but they were on average slower than most of their competitors. Don't get me wrong, the Chevelles and Cutlasses from this time looked great, but they were being held back by a GM gentleman agreement. When the muscle car wars were starting, GM had decided their mid-sized cars couldn't have more than 400 cubic inches in the engine compartment. This was done for insurance and safety reasons, so people could afford to drive the cars, but it left you kind of behind at the drag strip. Remember, this was before turbos and superchargers were commonplace. If you wanted to go fast, you had to have bigger displacement. No replacement for displacement, which people believe even today, and even I do to a certain extent. 8.1 liter engine? My 1.9 liter Civic on 20 pounds of boost can gap that. Okay, let me boost my V8.
What?
I just boosted my V8, now you're slower again. Yeah, nothing to say now, huh?
Well, at least I get 30 miles per gallon.
Crap. Luckily, GM was getting sick of seeing Mopar and Ford taillights at the strip, and in 1970, they decided that agreement was done. Bam, we're at the best year now. All of a sudden, GM had some cards to play. Bam, 454 Chevelle SS. Bam, 455 GSX and Cutlass Supreme. Bam, bam, bam. However, the Ford and the Mopar crew weren't going down without a fight. Bam, 70 GTX and Barracuda. Bam, 70 Mustang Mach 1. Bam, bam, bam. The muscle car wars had culminated into companies just shoving more and more power into their engines, tons nearing the 500 horsepower mark, and Buick actually surpassing the 500 pound-feet of torque mark, a record that stood until the Dodge Viper. There's engines from this time that are still frequently used in hot rodder racing. 426 Hemi, 454 Big Block, Ford 427. These things are being tuned to pass modern cars at the drag strip all the time. I myself have a 496 in my muscle car. There's a reason old versus new grudge matches are so popular on YouTube, because these old cars can compete. Honestly, better tires and a gear vendor's overdrive and you can throw down with some scat packs. And the variety was insane. Yeah, muscle cars are available today, but there's really just 3 to choose from: the Dodge Challenger, the Ford Mustang, and the Chevy Camaro. Back then you had Dodge, Plymouth, Chrysler, Ford, Mercury, Chevrolet, Buick, Pontiac, AMC, and probably a few more I'm not even thinking of. If you were a young guy that wanted a V8 coupe, you were gonna find the one you wanted. Need to go stupid fast? Dodge Dart. Want something you can cruise around town in? Camaro. Want to go fast with class as you get to your business meeting? Skylark. And at its peak, it suddenly just crashed. Between the EPA getting on car and lawmaker cases and the gas crisis of '73, all of a sudden you couldn't get new versions of these cars. Yeah, there were a few. The '71 Plymouths and Dodges looked okay. The second gen Camaros still looked fresh, and 71 to 78 Mustang was there, but their power was dropped by a lot to make new EPA regulations, which sucks, but also not getting lead poisoning from gasoline was cool. In 73, gas got rare, leading to gas stations running out and prices skyrocketing. All of a sudden, having a big V8 that got 8 miles per gallon wasn't all that great. As a result, the muscle car died for a while, with even the modern muscle market just being a shadow of its former self. 1970 was the year all the companies left it out on the floor. Big power, big cars. If you weren't in first, you were last. By the way, Buick GSX was fastest. You can kiss my chocolate starfish if you say otherwise. And no, I'm not including the Barracuda, because it's technically not a muscle car, it's a pony car. I may have considered a muscle car earlier, but if I consider it one now, I'd be losing, and I don't want to do that. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about the 1970 years as much as I did. Let me know your favorite muscle car in the comments below. I hope you have a good one. Peace.